Hello everyone. This is a video that I know that some people have wanted to see, while others have actually deterred me from making this video. But due to recent events regarding the entire matter, as well as gaining protection from those who have helped with the entire situation, I decided I would make my stance on this entire matter in a more formal and organized manner. In December of 2025, Grandmaster Tyler uploaded a video titled "The Clan Community vs. the Grandmaster," a video in which he attempts to respond to his multiple allegations of pedophilia and other sexual degenerate actions. Unfortunately, to prevent this video from being copyright claimed, I will not be able to show clips of the video in question. However, I will be dissecting and responding to his main arguments, ones that are both featured in this video, and another that he had uploaded a few months prior. We will go by each argument that he has made, and I'll either be correcting or responding to said point made. So first, let's start with probably the most well-known argument that he tends to make the most. The Inner System article is fake/fabricated. This claim has been the central point of contention over the past year, and it is therefore essential to address it as clearly and thoroughly first. The Inner System News article in question, however, was developed through direct interviews conducted by the original author, who spoke with both myself and Grandmaster Tyler himself. During these said conversations, Tyler made several statements and admissions that the author found noteworthy and in some cases concerning. These were not secondhand claims or speculative interpretations, but rather responses provided directly by Tyler himself. For example, Tyler acknowledged that he had asked acquaintances in law enforcement to look into his activities to confirm that they were not illegal. The author highlighted this as unusual, as such a request may reasonably raise questions. Typically, individuals who are confident in the legality of their actions do not feel the need to seek informal verification through personal contacts in law enforcement. Within the context of the broader discussion, this admission understandably contributed to concern and scrutiny. Additionally, Tyler stated that multiple independent groups within the community had raised similar accusations regarding his behavior. The fact that these concerns emerged from separate, unrelated parties adds a layer of significance. While a single accusation may be dismissible, consistent claims from multiple independent sources can reasonably lead observers to take those concerns more seriously. It is also important to emphasize that the article relies heavily on Tyler's own words. The content is largely composed of statements he voluntarily provided, which were documented by the author during the interview process. As such, the assertion that the article is fabricated is difficult to reconcile with the fact that it is based primarily on his own testimony. Furthermore, the article incorporates additional statements attributed to Tyler that were shared with others, some of which are supported by screen recordings. These recordings provide an added layer of credibility, as they serve as contemporaneous documentation rather than retrospective claims. The belief that this article is fabricated appears to stem largely from confusion surrounding unrelated, falsified screenshots that circulated separately. These screenshots were created by an individual who has since been demonstrated to be unreliable, with a documented history of fabricating evidence and misrepresenting information for personal gain or to implicate others. This individual was, at one point, part of our community. However, after it was discovered that they had falsified screenshots involving another member, they were removed from the group entirely, which following their removal out of petty revenge, they made retaliatory claims alleging that others, including myself, had fabricated evidence. Given their established pattern of dishonesty, these accusations lack credibility. It is critical to clarify that the falsified screenshots attributed to this individual were never included in the Inner System News article itself. These materials were posted independently via a separate Discord account without our knowledge or involvement. Conflating those unrelated fabrications with the article itself is a misunderstanding that has contributed to the ongoing claim that the article is not legitimate. In summary, the article is grounded in direct interviews, documented statements, and supporting evidence. The claim that it is fabricated relies on sources that have been proven unreliable and on materials that are not actually a part of the article itself. When examined in full context, there is no substantive basis to conclude that the article itself is fake. He also makes the claim that he was falsely accused with no evidence. In spite of the many admissions he had both in and out of the article itself, another problem with this statement is that it is rooted in hypocrisy. As in the summer of 2022, Grandmaster Tyler accused a former long-lasting friend, Unbolted Track 88, of many years of the same thing: pedophilic behavior. The problem is that he has admitted to others that he doesn't have concrete evidence, even going as far as 2 years afterward he made said allegations about this person, which ultimately led to their reputation being completely ruined. He has even had others and himself have continued to harass this individual on Halo and other platforms because of this. This also includes in which he has accused me of having sexual intercourse of a sandwich. Yes, I'm serious, that is an actual claim he made. He did say that, of course, without any proof or documentation. However, I would say that this is a matter of his gullibility, but the attempt to deflect accusations onto others has still been made. Simply put it, he is putting others on a higher standard of responsibility compared to himself. Why do the people who testified against you with evidence get scrutiny, yet you get a free pass when you did so to track in 2022? Now, obviously this moves on to the second claim that he has made, which is dissociative identity disorder. Tyler has asserted that he suffers from dissociative identity disorder, or DID, a complex and relatively rare psychiatric condition characterized by the presence of distinct identity states, along with disruptions in memory, consciousness, and behavior. This claim warrants careful scrutiny, however, particularly given the seriousness of such a diagnosis and the implication it comes with. The primary concern with this assertion is the absence of any credible or verifiable evidence supporting it. At no point has Tyler provided documentation, a former diagnosis, nor confirmation from a licensed mental health professional to substantiate that he has ever been diagnosed with DID. Instead, the only justification offered has been a vague reference to a friend studying psychology, which does not meet any recognized standard for any clinical evaluation or diagnosis. Individuals in training, without license or direct involvement in a formal diagnostic process, are not qualified to make or confirm such determinations. Furthermore, behavioral inconsistencies raise additional doubts about the legitimacy of this claim. As referenced in the InterSystem article itself, there were instances in which Tyler simultaneously engaged in separate conversations, exhibiting an altered personality in one interaction while maintaining a different presentation in the other. While this observation alone is not a clinical assessment, it does conflict with widely accepted understandings of DID, which generally involve involuntary and disruptive shifts in identity states rather than selective or situational presentations that can be toggled at will. To further assess this concern, I consulted with a licensed therapist and provided multiple documented examples of these behaviors. While they did not conduct a formal evaluation of Tyler, they did indicate that the patterns described are not consistent with how dissociative identity disorder typically presents in a clinical context. This professional input, while not a diagnosis, reinforces the conclusion that the claim lacks credibility based on the available evidence. It is also noted that, when challenged on this claim, Tyler has at times retreated from asserting DID definitively, instead stating uncertainty about what condition he may have. This inconsistency undermines the reliability of the original claim and suggests a shifting narrative rather than a stable, medically grounded explanation. Taken together, these factors point toward the likelihood that the claim of DID is not genuine. The absence of medical verification, the reliance on unqualified sources, and the inconsistent behavior patterns, and the subsequent retraction or uncertainty all indicate that this assertion may function more as a deflection of responsibility than as an accurate representation of a legitimate mental health condition. In some instances, the behavior more closely resembles deliberate roleplay or situational persona shifting rather than the involuntary and clinically significant symptoms associated with dissociative identity disorder. In conclusion, claims involving a serious mental health condition must be supported by credible professional evidence. In this case, no such evidence has ever been provided, and the observable behavior does not align with established clinical understanding. As such, the assertion that Tyler has dissociative identity disorder remains unsubstantiated, and should not be treated as a valid explanation without proper medical verification. Now, this argument that he has made is one I feel is personally, I think, probably the most dismissive out of all of them. And that one being that I am a stalker or a harasser. The claim that I engage in stalking, hacking, or monitoring Tyler's activities is not supported by credible evidence and appears to only function primarily as a deflection tactic, rather than being grounded in verifiable facts. This accusation shifts attention away from his own conduct while attempting to discredit those who have raised concerns about it. In contrast, there is a documented pattern of behavior suggesting that individuals within his own circle have made repeated efforts to monitor or intrude upon my own activities. These efforts have included attempts to gather information about me through platforms such as Xbox and Discord, as well as ongoing discussions about me and others who have spoken up against him. This pattern indicates a level of preoccupation that contradicts the claim that I am the only one engaging in obsessive or intrusive behavior. Additionally, multiple accounts indicate that Tyler has expressed a desire for retaliation against me and others who have provided testimony or criticism. Such statements further undermine the credibility of his accusation, as they suggest an ongoing fixation and adversarial intent rather than a legitimate concern about harassment. More significantly, in November of 2025, Tyler reportedly requested that members of groups associated with him engage in doxing and intimidation efforts directed at me. This included explicit encouragement to obtain and distribute my personal information. When confronted, however, he initially defended this request rather than immediately retracting it. Although he later asked for these actions to be called off, this reversal occurred, however, only after substantial external criticism, raising questions about whether this decision was motivated by genuine accountability or remorse rather than pressure made by others. Despite the subsequent request for cancellation, the harm has already been set in motion. My personal information has already ultimately been disseminated online, resulting in a series of anonymous and threatening phone calls over an extended period of time, to which I will show on screen the instance in which I had gotten multiple threatening calls within the time span of late January. Furthermore, there have been more recent incidents involving unknown individuals issuing threats and attempting to intimidate me, including the sharing of images purportedly depicting my own residence. Regardless of direct attribution, these actions reflect a broader environment that has been influenced by earlier calls for harassment and intimidation. The willingness to escalate to such tactics raises serious concerns about the intent to silence or deter those who speak critically. Given the severity of these events, I have formally reported the matter to the Internet Crime Complaint Center to ensure that all relevant information is documented and available for appropriate review. This step reflects the seriousness of this situation and the need for accountability when personal safety and privacy become compromised. In summary, the accusations that I am stalking lacks evidentiary support and is contradicted by a pattern of behavior originated from the opposing party. The documented incidents, including attempts at surveillance, calls for doxing, and subsequent harassment, demonstrate that the claim is not only unfounded, but also serves as a diversion from more substantive and concerning actions. I feel that if you are open to doing these kinds of actions, regardless if you are doing them or having someone else do it for you, is appalling. And I feel that it only makes you appear more guilty rather than innocent if you are willing to take efforts to silence those who are speaking about you on allegations and actions that you have done. Now, for the fourth and final one, the community lied about him out of hatred. Another argument presented by Tyler is that the broader Halo Clan community collectively fabricated these allegations against him out of personal animosity. This assertion lacks credibility and is not supported by the available evidence. While yes, it is true that certain segments of the clan community held a negative view of him prior to the allegations becoming widely known, this sentiment did not arise arbitrarily or without cause. Rather, it appears to have developed over time in response to repeated patterns of behavior. Numerous individuals have reported instances in which Tyler engaged in hostile or inappropriate conduct towards others. These accounts include directing harmful or aggressive language at community members, publicly criticizing others under the guise of moral authority, and exhibiting inappropriate behavior in online interactions. Such behaviors, when observed consistently, can reasonably contribute to a deterioration of reputation within any community. Additionally, concerns have been raised regarding his treatment of individuals within his own clan. Multiple former associates have expressed dissatisfaction stemming from perceived disrespect, being drawn into conflicts they do not wish to participate in, or having personal information, shared in confidence, used in ways that undermine trust. When negative experiences are reported both internally and externally, it becomes increasingly difficult to attribute criticism solely to bias or coordinated hostility. It is also important to address the explanation that these behaviors were the result of emotional instability or an effort to maintain a more professional environment within his group. While personal challenges can influence behavior, they do not excuse actions that negatively impact others, particularly when those actions are repeated and affected multiple individuals. Accountability remains essential regardless of intent. The broader community's response appears to reflect an accumulation of these experiences rather than a coordinated effort to fabricate claims. In most cases, individuals and groups independently reach similar conclusions based on their own interactions or observations with Grandmaster Tyler. These patterns undermines the notion of a collective conspiracy and instead suggest a consistent perception shaped by first-hand encounters. Furthermore, even following the controversy, Tyler has contributed to make disparaging remarks about other groups and community members, including those with little or no direct involvement in the entire situation. Public statements and streams and other communications have included dismissive or derogatory characteristics of others, which further reinforces existing concerns about his conduct. Such behavior does not support the argument that he is being unfairly targeted. Rather, it contributes to the persistence of negative perceptions. In fact, in his former response, he also adopts a confrontational tone toward the community regardless, urging others to quote-unquote use their brains, instead of encouraging constructive dialogue, reflection, or even mutual understanding. This approach is rather counterproductive. Attempting to persuade or rebuild credibility through dismissive or insulting language is unlikely to foster support or reconciliation. In summary, the claim that the community collectively fabricated allegations out of hatred does not align with the available evidence. Negative perceptions appear to have developed organically as a result of repeated interactions and observed behavior. The consistency of these accounts across multiple, independent sources suggests that the issue is not one of coordinated falsehood, but rather of sustained conduct that has led to a loss of trust and credibility within the community. This idea that an entire community would all make up a lie and run with it because of hatred with no known source is a clear example of self-pity and victimhood. Conclusion is that in reviewing the claims and counterclaims surrounding Tyler, a consistent pattern emerges that the arguments presented in his defense are not supported by either concrete, credible evidence and are frequently contradicted by documented behavior, first-hand accounts, and his own recorded statements. First, the assertion that the InterSystem News article was fabricated does not withstand scrutiny. The article is made essentially in direct interviews, including Tyler's own admissions, as well as corroborating material such as recorded statements. Claims of fabrication rely on unrelated, falsified screenshots produced by a demonstrably unreliable third party, materials that were never included in the article itself. As such, dismissing the article as fake ignores the substantial amount of verifiable content derived directly from his own words. Second, the claim of dissociative identity disorder remains entirely unsubstantiated. No medical documentation or qualified professional diagnosis has been provided, and the behaviors cited do not align with widely accepted clinical understandings of the condition. The reliance on informal or unverified sources, combined with inconsistent explanations, strongly suggests that this claim functions as a deflection rather than a legitimate medical explanation. Third, the allegation that I am a stalker is not only unsupported, but contradicted by evidence of targeted harassment directed towards me. Documented incidents, including attempts to gather personal information, calls for doxing and intimidation, and subsequent threats, demonstrate a pattern of behavior originating from his side rather than mine. The escalation of these actions and their real-world impact underscores the seriousness of the situation and further discredits the accusation. Finally, the claim that the broader community collectively fabricated allegations out of hatred is implausible. Negative perceptions of Tyler appear to have developed independently across multiple groups and individuals, based on repeated interactions and consistent patterns of conduct. Reports of disrespect, hostility, and misuse of trust are not isolated but reoccurring. Moreover, his continued use of dismissive and antagonistic rhetoric towards others only reinforces these concerns rather than resolving them. Taken together, these points indicate that the narrative being presented in his defense is largely built on deflection, inconsistency, and a lack of verifiable evidence. In contrast, the concerns raised by others are supported by documentation, corroboration, and repeated patterns of behavior observed over time. In conclusion, this situation is not the result of a coordinated effort to falsely discredit an individual, but rather the outcome of sustained actions that have led to a loss of trust within the community. Any meaningful resolution would require accountability, transparency, and a willingness to engage with these concerns in good faith, none of which are demonstrated through the arguments addressed above. Let it be known that this will be the last time that I ever mention or discuss this topic, as the repeated doxing and threats have affected my life in a negative manner, so I will no longer be discussing this matter any further upon this video's upload, whether that be in my YouTube content or even in private. I will no longer be discussing on this matter at all. But either way, I sincerely hope that those who see this get a much better understanding of this entire situation. And I appreciate to anyone who has stuck around to the end, and therefore, I hope that everyone here has a pleasant day. For now, take care. Goodbye.